Edwards, you have a new album coming out, Total Freedom.
Total freedom.
And it's your first one in many a year.
Total freedom.
There you go.
Oh.
I love it. So the obvious first question is, I know you mentioned your cafe, so you've kind of dropped out of sight for a while as far as making music, and you've kind of returned back to it in the interim, starting this cafe. So was there something that made you realize you needed to start making music again?
Well, I certainly realized I make more money playing music than I do selling a cup of coffee, but not really. I mean, I've been really I'm probably privileged enough to say that the ways in which I've paid the bills over my life have been for pursuits of passion rather than not being motivated so much by money. But
right.
If anyone has been in a startup business kind of mode before, they know it's an incredible commitment, and your entire life and your focus 24/7 is really about your startup business. Mm-hmm. And about 2 or 3 years into running Quitters, I was lucky enough for a few days to work with another artist named Maren Morris, and I had been so removed from the creative community that was part of my life for so long that when I found myself in the company of those people, I kind of just immediately was like, oh my God, I forgot. This is what this feels like. And right. It's so exciting. And this is such a huge part of my, my makeup as a person is to be in this creative mode. And I just, I came home from that trip to Nashville just ready to be in that space again. It was just really fun, and it just didn't have any kind of, I don't know, maybe because I'd been at the cafe long enough, I had the opportunity to really just let go of the ego part of being a performer and somebody who was on stage and wondering what people were, not wondering, but always being sort of at the mercy of what other people thought of your work. And I had enough time to just not live in that world that none of those things mattered. And I was just excited to make art again.
Right. And did you have songs kind of, were you writing all the time, or did you just start kind of all over again?
No, I mean, I didn't even pick up a guitar. I didn't look at it. I just had no interest. And I'm really glad I didn't, because it just felt all fresh again. I didn't have calluses on my fingers, which was right. For the first time in 10 years. I didn't, I had to break in my fingers again when I played for 20 minutes. I was like, oh, my fingers hurt. Yeah. And it just also allowed me to not associate anything I did for this record, any writing. I didn't associate it with, I didn't feel confined, or I didn't feel like there was some kind of comparison I needed to do to anything I'd done previously, because it felt like a distant past.
Right. Therefore, the title Total Freedom, apparently.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. So when you did start writing again, how did you go about doing? Do you kind of fall into a rhythm of writing that you kind of felt you remembered from before, or was it a real start from scratch?
Well, it was a good reminder that you don't just pick up a guitar and ideas don't just come to you. You really have to be disciplined in your commitment to give something time, but you actually have to make that act. Like, you actually have to pick up the guitar, you got to play chords, you got to sing, you got to try stuff, you got to use words, you got to keep a notebook, you got to make voice memos. Like, I remember years ago, Ryan Adams was interviewed, or he was talking about, people, say I'm so prolific and the songs come easy. He goes, no, I work really hard at it. Like, I am really disciplined about making sure every day I sit down and I do this exercise. And it's not because I'm trying to beat a dead horse. Like, well, I'm paraphrasing, but yeah. He really he was able to create this really beautiful content because he actually was working at it. He actually sat down every day. I had to do that too. I had to remove myself from quitters, and I had to just sort of every day plug away and sit down for at least an hour or two. And the more you do, the more you're like, oh, that sounds really cool. And your mind starts really inhabiting that creative space more and more. And I think that's just how it naturally came to be for me for the record.
Cool. So did you have something that you needed to say in these songs, did you feel, or do you just kind of wait to see what happened?
Well, I know that I really had the desire to find a way to express this sort of newfound, and I know it's derivative, but this newfound sense of freedom that I gained by quitting music and letting go of any expectation that somehow this was going to be something that was going to, that my, I don't know, it sounds a bit narcissistic or, self-important, but I mean, for years I chased a carrot. For years even though I cared about the authenticity of my work, there was always that underlying, because, you work with people who want you to succeed. They want big opportunities for you. And you buy into maybe this record will break out more and more and more. And my ego had taken such a beating, and I was so willing to just not have any expectations. It allowed me to be truly uninhibited in how I wrote. And I think that let me write the way I did for my first record. And it was fun. And it was fun and inspired. And when something sounded super weird and quirky, I was like, don't forget that part. That's the best part of you.
Very good. And now notice in the first song, you mentioned Hamilton. So I assume you must have lived there at some point.
I did. Yeah. Hamilton is a town about 45 minutes outside of Toronto.
Yep.
And I moved there from Toronto with my husband at the time, Colin, who was my bandmate. He produced one of my records with me. And he was from there, and we ended up buying a home there together. And, it's also where we split up, but I have wonderful memories of for anyone who's ever bought a home, there's that, especially your first home, there's that feeling of like, I just bought a house. Like, this is a huge life moment. And I had that there. And, it's just nice sort of life stuff that it's nice to look back and reflect on with sort of like a new filter or a new appreciation and a gratitude for those like life moments that sometimes we don't, sometimes we look at the big picture and we're always looking ahead, and we don't look back and go, that was a big deal. And how cool is it that that was a big deal in my life?
Yeah, because I just spoke to someone else who was formerly of Hamilton as well, and we have a Hamilton here in just south of Auckland, a fairly large city in New Zealand here. So it seems to be weighing. It keeps coming up these days. It's interesting.
I've been to Auckland. I came. I want to say around 2010.
Oh yeah.
I came to Auckland because I got asked to host country music television in Canada. Did this travel series where they asked a bunch of artists to travel to different parts of the world and do a 3-day tour this place. And I did it in Auckland, and it was wonderful. Oh my God, it's so cool.
It is a good place to be. I'm glad I'm here rather than back in Rochester. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, if we could coordinate my New Zealand tour with Canada's winter, that would be ideal.
That should be no problem. Look at your dog.
That's Fred.
I'm surprised my cat isn't making a photo bomb appearance. She tends to manage to show up whenever cameras are rolling. The other song I was hoping to touch on was Hard on Everyone, which is track number 2, which is kind of a different vibe than the first one, definitely. Everything in this house is broken. It sounds ominous.
Well, have you ever met people who are hard on their things? Like, it was actually, that came from something where my dad observed this person, and he said, that guy's really hard on his stuff because his shit was always breaking, and it was because he handled everything roughly. And yeah, it was, everything in this house breaks, and it was kind of this strange parallel. Like, I mean, obviously, it was a sign, it was a sign, like, oh, the fridge broke, like, and now the furnace broke, and then the broke, and now this broke. And anyway, yeah. So it actually worked perfectly because this person was just hard on people, but he was also hard on his things, like stuff that didn't have any emotional value. He also was just hard on them too.
Right. Some people are like that, that's for sure. We had a flatmate here who just kept always falling down, breaking things, tipping over, getting hit by cars. It was just like, it was all, it was a mess.
Some breathing exercises.
Yeah, definitely. And another song I wanted to touch on was Simple Math. I like the kind of the line about people coming in and out like a kite. I thought that was kind of nice.
Well, someone asked me in the last week what one of my favorite songs on the record is, and I'm sure it'll change. It changes as you play, and it changes as you. But that is really one of my favorite songs on the record. I really loved writing it.
Yep.
As a songwriter, it was a really rewarding thing because I had this really simple idea about love is simple math, but then that idea just fell into no man's land for a long time, and it took a reconnecting with an old friend to just be able to come home and take that idea, and it just immediately found its place, and it just felt like a beautiful story about what it's like to be. I don't know, I'm 42. I guess it's one of those songs where I feel like it's representative of what growing older feels like, which is, you do have these people come in and out of your life, and there's certain people with whom you can always reconnect. It's never too late. And that's sort of what it was about.
Nice. Now the album is coming out in a week on the 14th. Yeah. And like you said, I said, it's been a while since you've released one. And with all the stuff going on in the world, how is it different for you looking up forward to this week and preparing for a release now?
Well, some things are much harder, and some things have been taken off my plate entirely. Like, I don't have to kind of contemplate what a year on the road is going to look like.
That's
and where
true.
my dog is going to go. And,
yeah.
And there's a bit of relief in that because, I don't really like a tour bus. It wasn't really a happy place for me. Playing for people was lovely and connecting, but the other stuff was it's really hard, Mm-hmm. I'm not 20 anymore. But the part too, where I'm doing this in front of a camera instead of actually connecting with people, like I can see you right now, and you and I feel like I'm connecting with you because I can see you. We're having a conversation, but to perform to web broadcast stuff, it feels like a far second place where I love seeing people's faces, and it's not the applause. It's just that part where I make eye contact with people when I'm playing, and it's really part of the joy of performing is connecting. And I can't connect if I can't see people, and that part's feeling a little daunting. How's that gonna go? And
and have you noticed? Sorry, go ahead.
No, but I also feel like I made a record that's full of sort of like joyful reflection and perspective, and it's really present, even though it is reflective, and there's a lot of gratitude. And so I feel like this is a good time to put something like that out, because I think people really need something like that. And I mean, I need it, I need to be able to like stay in that good place to feel good about things right now. It's not an easy time.
And has music business changed much in the past 6 or 7 years? I mean, is there a music business? I don't even know.
Well, I don't know either, because honestly, I signed my record deal. My first record deal I signed in 2002. There wasn't even a chapter in that contract that had anything to do with digital.
Right.
So
Sure.
that's how, like, a Survivor 101 over here in the music business. You know, I've had to navigate every time I've put a record out. The circumstances have changed. The targets are different. The statistics, the platforms, and
Yeah.
so I came to realize actually one thing this break did really give me from music was that I realized I just don't care about how things are marketed. I don't care how I'm marketed. I mean, if I don't like a picture of myself, I'll say like, I don't really like that picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't care where you want to put my music. I mean, I don't care about the platform. I get that it's always going to be different. It's always going to be changing. There's always going to be something new. And I care about just remaining kind of proud and having a healthy perspective on the work I do. And connecting with people is far more important than being like, and now I'm going to do a Spotify thing because Spotify is important, or I'm going to do a thing for blah, 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 because that is an important way to have people hear my music. I let other people take care of that. I just do me, and they can do that job. And my job is just to care about what I'm doing.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for doing all of that. It's been a pleasure talking to you and seeing you. And hopefully we'll see you in the flesh down here sometime or other once the things start moving.
Is it quite cold in New Zealand today?
Well, it is winter, but cold is relative speaking. It's kind of like 50 degrees Fahrenheit-ish, I think.
Because I mean, I realize that you guys are on the opposite side
Yep.
of
See what
the
the temperature
equator, but it feels very odd that I'm in Ontario and I'm in a tank top, and you're in New Zealand and you're in a sweater. But
Yeah, it's
I realize
54 degrees here.
okay. Oh yeah, it's chilly. That's cold.
Yeah, and it's always it's kind of rainy and overcast, you know. So whatever, but it's winter. That's as bad as it gets, really. We don't get any snow here. That was because people ask me, well, why did I move to Auckland? I could have, because Toronto is a very similar type of city, but it's just
Yeah.
I put up with so much snow in Rochester, I just couldn't bear it anymore. So we get
No, but
the
I have to say it makes perfect sense to me why people move to New Zealand, because I
yeah.
went there for a week and I just thought, oh yeah, this is why people like come here once and go, I'm going home to pack my shit.
That's pretty much what we did.
It's so spectacular. I mean, it really is. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see you soon. Good luck with the record. Thank you for making it. Thanks for returning.
Oh, thank you. It's really nice to talk to you.
You too.
Okay.
Bye-bye, and say bye to your dog.
Penny and Fred. Bye, Penny and Fred. They're full of, you know,
Oh,
full of it.
all right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.